I was listening to Connor Beaton on a Chris Williamson podcast, and Beaton said the men that become the real leaders of the future are going to be men that are exceptionally emotionally attuned, able to read the data that's happening on the inside of them and not be numbed or completely disconnected. Exceptionally emotionally attuned. Love it. Not the smartest, not the strongest, not the most successful, the most emotionally attuned. The most attuned, the most emotionally aware, the most capable of being present in their own inner world and the inner worlds of others. He's absolutely right. And here's what that looks like in practice. An emotionally safe man can regulate his nervous system when chaos erupts around him. He can feel anger without becoming anger. He can feel fear without being controlled by it. He can receive feedback without defending, blaming, or running away. He can contain the intensity of his own emotional world, which means he can contain the emotions of others. He doesn't collapse or combat with his kids, his partner, his team. He's not reactive, he's responsive. There's space for what happens to him and how he shows up. Beaton calls this emotional containment. Others call it emotional intelligence. Dr. James Wilder calls it joy strength. I call it becoming a heartsmith. This is the Heartsmith podcast. I'm Jason, and today we're talking about the path from self-awareness to relational restoration. The 5 R's that take a man from emotionally illiterate to emotionally masterful. This isn't therapy talk. This is training. This is forging. This is the work that makes you the kind of man that others want to be around. Let's go. Here's the reality. Most men are masters of concealment, another beaten phrase. We've learned to succeed at work, provide for our families, build businesses, lead teams, all while completely disconnected from our own hearts and emotional landscape. We're high performers, just crushing it externally while feeling this void or hollow internally. And for many Christian men, we've learned to, in addition to this, hide, even hide behind our theology, even in the name of deconstructing and finding a better way to think about God, the world, and the Bible. We could even hide behind that. We can quote scripture, defend doctrine, attend church, or not even attend church and you have a badge about that. All the while being tone deaf to the actual fruits of the Spirit in our lives, like love, joy, and peace, etc. I've heard men say, well, I'm a new creation in Christ. And so that's all the work that I need to do and just learn more and think more. While our marriages are dying, our kids don't trust us, and we're medicating with work, porn, or anger. I know. I coach these men. Dr. James Wilder, he teaches something really critical. He says that your spiritual maturity cannot outpace your emotional maturity. I'll say that again. Just conceptualizing all that he writes in his books, and I really enjoy him, basically says your spiritual maturity cannot outpace your emotional maturity. What does that mean? You can have right beliefs and still lack relational capacity. You can love God sincerely and still struggle to love others well. because emotional health it's not an add-on to spiritual life. It's it's the infrastructure that makes spiritual formation real instead of theoretical. And when you try to bypass emotional work, your spiritual growth eventually hits a wall. And I see this time and time again in the lives of many. When we look at Jesus, he didn't just teach truth, he embodied it. You can't bypass the heart work with right beliefs. Jesus didn't just teach truth, he embodied it. He felt everything. He wept, he got angry, he celebrated, he mourned, he loved. And the incarnation shows us that being a man means living in your body, not just your head. But most of us were never taught how. We were taught to power through emotions instead of slowing down to process them, to provide for others while neglecting ourselves, to win at work but maybe losing at home, to be strong, which really meant to be silent and maybe not talk about our needs or demand them. And unless we transform our pain into power, we will transmit it onto those closest to us. That's Richard Rohr's language I've been using for years, and it's devastatingly true. So what do? We stop hiding, we stop performing, and we do the work. And that work has a roadmap, the 5 R's, from self-awareness to relational restoration. Here's the path from self-awareness to relational restoration, all on this podcast. 5 stages, 5 practices, 5 capacities you can build. Not theory, training. Let me walk you through them right here, just about 20 minutes. The first R is recognize. Emotions are data, not directives. Emotions are information. They're data from your dashboard, not orders from headquarters. So your anger isn't the problem. Your anger is telling you something important, and it's saying that there's something valuable to you that's under threat, a boundary, a value, a relationship. Anger is such an intelligent emotion when we listen to the message it's trying to communicate to us in our bodies. There's more wisdom available to us than we know. Your anxiety. Your anxiety isn't weakness. It's your body saying, "Hey, pay attention. Something here matters." Your sadness. It's not something to fix. It's grief over loss. And grief is love with nowhere to go. But most men have never been taught how to read the dashboard. We just know the check engine light is on and we either ignore it or let it hijack the whole system. So here's what I mean. A client named Michael came to me because his teenage son had stopped talking to him. So what do I do? And he was saying every conversation, it just ended in either an explosion or some kind of a shutdown. And Michael said, I don't know what's happening to me. I either get angry or I just freeze up. So here's what was happening. Michael's nervous system was flooding. His body was registering threat. My relationship with my son is under attack and I don't know what to do. So he went into fight or flight mode. And so Michael never learned to recognize that. He just knew that he felt bad and he reacted. So the first step is recognition. Name the emotion. I'm feeling threatened. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling protective. We can't tame what we aren't able to name. So not to eliminate it, but to understand it. Emotions are data, not directive. They give you information and you still get to choose what you do with it. And so that's what recognize is all about. But recognition alone is not enough. You also have to calm your nervous system so you can respond instead of react. And that's where the second R comes in. Regulate. Master your internal storm. It's not that men don't feel. They often are deep feelers, but they don't know how to process and navigate their inner life. Once you recognize what you're feeling, you need to calm your nervous system so you can respond instead of react. And I've been teaching men for years, surf the emotions. Don't let it wipe you out. You feel the full force of the wave, but you ride it rather than letting it ride you. And there's a skill to learn how to do this. Now, if you're going to regulate your internal storm, and we all have them if you're human, you need to understand what's fueling you in the first place. And now here's the thing about regulation. What you're running on matters. Most men run on anger or shame for the most part. We use anger to get things done, shame to push ourselves harder, resentment to stay motivated. And it works for a while until it doesn't. Anger and shame are fossil fuels. They burn hot and they burn out. They lead to blow-ups, crashes, and burnout. And then we stay in these fear bonds with the people around us. Joy strength is what Dr. Wilder teaches. I love it. He says that joy strength is sustainable fuel, that glad to be with you no matter what energy. It's identity based. It's relational based. It's knowing who you are, not just what you do. But you can't access joy while you're still numbing everything else. When you shut down anger, sadness, or fear, you also shut down your capacity for joy, peace, and connection, the stuff that we're wired for. Emotions don't work selectively. You can't turn off the hard ones and keep the good ones. It's the whole elevator panel we're working with. So Michael had spent years and years trying to avoid feeling anything difficult. And in that process, he lost access to joy, connection, to himself, to others, to presence, even to peace. And there was a lot of chaos ruling his life, even bouncing between rigidity and the internal storm. Well, to access sustainable fuel, first you have to stop running from your internal storm. You have to regulate it, whether it's a fiery storm or an ice storm. Your body needs to learn, I'm safe. I can feel this without being destroyed by it. And so Michael, he learned in our coaching sessions to regulate by noticing the early warning signs, that tightness in his chest when conflict started, the heat rising in his face, the energy in his fist or his hands, the urge to either flight, fight, or even fawn. Then he would train himself to pause, to breathe. 3 deep breaths, hand on his chest, ground his feet. It sounds overly simplistic, but this is the beginning of the work. This isn't calm down. This isn't I can handle what I'm feeling without letting it handle me. It's it's the neuroscience approach that shows that people with strong emotional regulation, they actually have stronger prefrontal cortexes, the part of the brain responsible for decision making. You're not trying to be unfeeling. You're not trying to white knuckle and stoic your way through detaching from emotions, that's a whole nother set of problems. You're learning to be unshaken because you're anchored. And that's regulates, recognize, regulate. And the third R is reflect. Enter the cave that you fear to enter. This is the deep work, the shadow work, the work most men avoid their entire lives. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. Your unprocessed pain, your father wounds, your shame, your ungrieved losses, they're running the show until you enter the cave and face them. Most men spend their entire lives building walls around the cave. We work harder, we achieve more, we distract ourselves, we spiritualize our avoidance. That one kills me. I'm a new creation in Christ, we say. And yes, yeah, that's true. But unless you do the work of integrating your shadow, you'll stay emotionally arrested. You'll continue to transmit your pain onto your wife, your kids, and your team. The cave holds your gold, but you have to be willing to go in. This is where you meet your parts. The angry part, the scared part, the exiled part you've been running from since childhood. It doesn't just go away, it lives in your body and in your memory. This is the work where you grieve what you expected but didn't receive. This is where you pause and stop performing and pretending and start becoming. Michael had to reflect on why conflict with his son triggered him so intensely, because it just wasn't about that moment. It wasn't really about the teenager. It was about the scared kid inside of Michael who never felt safe expressing anger to his own father. And so when Michael entered that cave, everything changed. You can't skip this work. You can't think your way through it. You can't spiritualize your way through it. You can't deconstruct your way through it. You have to feel your way through it. That's reflect. And here's the thing. You can do all the cave work in the world, but if you still react instead of respond in real life, nothing changes. And that's where the fourth aura comes in. Respond. That space between stimulus and response. Famously, Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Most untrained men react. Emotionally trained men respond. And here's what that looks like in real life. Your boss criticizes you at work in front of the team. And the reactive response would be you defend, you make excuses, or you shut down and stew in resentment for days. The trained response is, okay, this is really terrible. You feel the anger rise in that moment. You notice the tightness in your chest. You take a breath. And then you say, I hear your concern. Can we talk about this one-on-one after the meeting so I can understand what needs to change? You didn't deny the emotion, you didn't suppress it. You felt it, regulated it, and responded with clarity. And then your future self could thank you for that moment. Another scenario, your teenager rolls their eyes and says, "You don't get it, Dad," right? The reactive response is you just lose it, you explode. Don't talk to me that way, or you just shut down and walk away. The trained response is you notice the hurt and defensiveness rising. You pause and then you say, "You're right. You're right. I might not get it. Help me understand what's going on. You created space. You responded from strength, not woundedness. Another potential scenario. Your wife says to you, "You never listen to me." The reactive response. "That's not true. I'm listening right now." Or you get defensive and list all the times you did listen. Not super helpful. The trained response is you feel the defensiveness rising up in your body and you breathe. And then you say, "I can see I've missed something really important to you. Tell me what you need from me right now. I'm willing to put my ears on." You didn't defend, you leaned in. That's emotional agility. That's wisdom. You're not eliminating emotions, you're becoming skillful with them. And after 6 months of training, Michael called me. "Jay," he said, "my son and I just had our first real conversation in years." He told me that he was struggling at school, and instead of getting frustrated or even trying to fix him, I just listened. I asked him what he needed, and he actually told me, and then he hugged me. So that connection is what happens when you respond instead of react. That's the power of the space in between. The fifth R is restore. Become a man of peace. This is where it all comes together. This is my favorite. This is the destination of the journey. When you've done the work, when you recognize, regulate, reflect, and respond, you become something rare. A man who can contain chaos, not just your own chaos, but the chaos of others. Your kids can bring their big emotions to you, and you don't shut down or freak out. You're the riverbed that can hold the river. Your partner can share her frustration, and you don't get defensive or stonewall or critical or try to fix her. You're present, you're grounded. Your team can bring their stress to you, and you don't absorb it or deflect it. You create calm. Those are concepts that I heard recently called vagal authority. When a man has done his inner work, his grounded presence affects the room that he's in. It's like he has extra capacity that others maybe even can borrow. That extra space between stimulus and response, that anchoredness that creates safety for everyone around him. He's not a man untethered. He's a man tethered to himself and to God. Jesus exemplified this. He walked into storms and said, "Peace, be still." He stood in chaos and extended calm. That's what you're becoming, a man of peace. Not passive, not weak, not conflict avoidant, but a man who has the skills to have fierce conversations with attunement and compassion. But a man who's done this work develops this capacity to not only embody peace within him, but to restore peace with his kids when they're melting down, with his partner when conflict arises, with his team when pressure mounts. What a skill it is to be a peacemaker. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature instead of just reflecting it. This is relational restoration. This is the gift of the Heartsmith. Michael didn't just repair his relationship with his son, he became a different kind of father, a different kind of leader, a different kind of man. That's restore. That's where the five R's take you from self-awareness to relational restoration. How amazing is that? Before we close, I want to show you what this looks like fully embodied. In my coaching work, I help men develop what I call the four archetypes of the total man, the integrated man, the king, the sage, the warrior, and the lover. grounded presence, liberating wisdom, emotional courage, and deep devotion. And when you look at Jesus, you see all four embodied perfectly. King. He stayed grounded when the disciples panicked in the storm. Calm authority in chaos. Sage. He spoke liberating truth through parables and questions, wisdom that set people free. Warrior. He felt everything. Wept at Lazarus's tomb, celebrated at weddings. He got angry in the temple. And all of this without being controlled by any of it. Emotional courage and agility. Lover. He loved deeply. He yearned for connection, called his disciples friends instead of servants. Deep, deep devotion. And this is what it looks like to be fully integrated, not just strong or tender, not just wise or passionate, all of it in your body, your relationships, in your daily life. That's that's what incarnation means, making it real in the body, not just keeping it all up in your head. To be incarnational is to be intentional. You don't just think about being present. You intentionally put down your phone and you look your wife in the eye. You don't just value courage. You do something about it. You intentionally feel the fear and set the boundary anyway. You don't just conceptualize or idealize devotion. You intentionally tell someone, I love you, without needing them to say it back. That's the path of the five R's. This is where the road takes you on from self-awareness to becoming that kind of man. Here's what I know. You can't do this work alone. You can recognize and regulate on your own for a while, but to reflect, to enter the cave, to face your shadow, to integrate your pain, you need witness. You need brotherhood. You need other men who get it. And that's why I created Man Cave for men and also for myself, where we'll meet bi-weekly to do this work. And for men who are ready to take the deep dive, that's why the open heart journey exists. And that's the 12-week intensive where men stop hiding behind performance and start doing this heart work. It's there we practice these five R's together with accountability, with witness, with brotherhood. And this is where emotional illiteracy becomes emotional mastery, where anger as fuel becomes joy strength, where concealment becomes present. If you need new fuel and new skills, and you no longer want to suppress or repress your emotional world, well, the open heart journey's doors are closed. That began in January. This current cohort is going really well. But we'll open up again sometime in the spring. And so jump on a discovery call with me and save your spot. And it's for men who are done surviving and trying harder, but are really ready to learn a new way to become whole. This could be you. The world needs men who can feel deeply and still think clearly. Men who can be present to their own hearts and steady in their own strength. That's what we're forging here. That's what makes a heartsmith. Shape the heart, forge the man. This is the Heartsmith podcast. I'm Jason, and I'll see you in the forge.